There is a war happening right now. Not for your money, not for your vote, not even for your time. Those have always mattered. But today, something even more valuable is under attack. Your mind. Most people believe their thoughts belong entirely to them, that they choose what deserves their attention, what they care about and what they remember, what they ignore. But what if many of those choices are being quietly influenced before you ever realize you're making them? What if the greatest threat to your future is not ignorance, but living in a world designed to profit every time your attention drifts? History has never been shaped only by those who controlled land or wealth. It has been shaped by those who controlled attention. Kings understood it, religions understood it, empires understood it. Today, technology understands it better than anyone. The unsettling part is not that countless systems compete for your attention. Competition has always existed. The unsettling part is how willingly we surrender it. One notification at a time, one headline at a time, one endless scroll at a time, until years pass and we find ourselves mentally exhausted, unable to concentrate, and strangely disconnected from the person we once imagined becoming. The modern world is not simply changing how you live. It is quietly changing how you think. And once the way you think begins to change, everything else follows. That is the war few people recognize, and it has already begun. For most of history, power announced itself. It wore crowns, commanded armies, built walls. People knew when someone was trying to conquer them. Today, power rarely arrives with force. It arrives as convenience, entertainment, recommendations, personalization. Everything feels effortless, everything feels helpful, and that is precisely why it is so effective. No one demands your attention anymore. You are invited to give it away. Every vibration in your pocket, every suggested video, every trending topic, every infinite feed, each one competes for the same prize, not your money, your attention, because attention is where every decision begins. What repeatedly captures your attention eventually captures your thoughts. Your thoughts shape your beliefs, and your beliefs quietly shape the person you become. Identity is rarely transformed in dramatic moments. It is built through repeated exposure, day after day, thought after thought, choice after choice. That is why attention is more valuable than time. You can lose an hour and recover tomorrow. But every moment of attention leaves a mark on the architecture of your mind, sometimes so gradually, you never notice the construction taking place. That is what makes the greatest battle of the modern world almost invisible. It is not fought with weapons, it is fought with distractions. Because a distracted mind is easier to influence. An overwhelmed mind stops asking difficult questions. A constantly stimulated mind loses its capacity for reflection. And a mind that no longer reflects begins accepting ideas, not because they are true, but because they have become familiar. Familiarity is often mistaken for truth. That is how influence quietly becomes identity. Ask yourself something uncomfortable. When was the last time you sat in complete silence? No phone, no music, no conversation, no notifications, nothing to distract you from your own thoughts. For many people, that silence now feels almost unbearable. Not because silence has changed, but because the mind has forgotten what uninterrupted thought feels like. Modern life conditions us to avoid empty moments. The line at a supermarket becomes an excuse to check our phones. A conversation pauses, and we reach for entertainment. The moment we are left alone with ourselves, we search for something to interrupt the experience. Without realizing it, we begin outsourcing our attention. Eventually, we begin outsourcing our thinking. That is the hidden cost of endless distraction. It does not simply consume your time. It quietly erodes your ability to remain with difficult questions, the very questions that create wisdom, that deepen character, that alter the course of a life. There was a time when boredom was ordinary. People waited without reaching into their pockets. They walked without filling every silence. They sat beside a window and simply watched the world unfold. Their minds wandered, connections formed, questions emerged, ideas took shape. Today, boredom has become something to escape. The instant silence appears, we replace it. The instant discomfort arrives, we numb it. The instant reflection begins, we interrupt it. At first it seems harmless, but the human mind was never designed for endless consumption. It was designed to move between experience and reflection. Without reflection, experience becomes nothing more than noise. Think about everything you have consumed this week. News, videos, posts, messages, opinions. Now ask yourself a better question. How much of it actually changed the way you understand the world? Information has never been the same as wisdom. Knowledge enters the mind. Wisdom emerges only when the mind is given enough silence to discover what that knowledge truly means. That silence is becoming increasingly rare, not because it disappeared, because we stopped protecting it. Modern life celebrates speed, faster communication, faster entertainment, faster opinions, faster reactions. Everything moves at a pace that leaves little room for reflection. But wisdom has never been in a hurry. It asks for patience, for observation, for the willingness to stay with a question long after everyone else has rushed toward an answer. Some of history's greatest ideas were not born in crowded rooms or moments of urgency. They emerged in quiet places, in long walks, in solitary mornings, in hours that appeared unproductive to everyone except the person doing the thinking. Understanding has always grown in silence before it ever spoke. That is becoming a forgotten discipline, not because people are less intelligent than they once were, but because uninterrupted thought has become increasingly rare. And without deep thinking, there can be no deep living. Perhaps the greatest illusion of modern life is the belief that constant activity is the same as progress. It isn't. A compass that never stops spinning will never point north. A person can spend an entire day responding, replying, clicking, consuming, and still never move meaningfully closer to the life they want. Because reacting is not the same as choosing. Reaction is immediate. Choice requires awareness. That is the difference between living intentionally and living by default. Every notification asks for your attention. Every headline demands an opinion. Every trend invites participation. Individually, they seem insignificant. Together, they create a life lived in response to everyone else's priorities. Eventually, your days become a chain of interruptions. You no longer decide what deserves your attention. The world decides for you. That is how freedom quietly disappears, not because someone takes it by force, because you gradually stop exercising it. Freedom is rarely lost all at once. It is surrendered one unconscious decision at a time. The strongest minds throughout history understood this. They guarded their attention with extraordinary care, not because they feared distraction, because they understood what distraction eventually becomes. A philosopher protects silence because ideas cannot compete with constant noise. An artist protects imagination because creativity cannot survive endless imitation. A scientist protects curiosity because discovery begins where distraction ends. A leader protects clarity because confused minds cannot make courageous decisions. Different lives, different callings, the same discipline. They recognized a truth that feels almost radical today. The quality of your attention determines the quality of your reality. Attention is never passive. It is an investment. Whatever receives it begins shaping the way you see the world. Whatever repeatedly shapes your perception begins influencing your choices. Those choices become habits. Those habits become character. And character quietly becomes destiny. Long before the world sees your future, your attention has already started building it. That is why the greatest danger is not distraction itself. The greatest danger is forgetting that your attention belongs to you. The moment you stop deciding where it goes, someone else will gladly decide for you. Every generation produces louder voices. History remembers clearer minds. The people who changed the world were rarely those who consumed the most information. They were the ones who created the deepest understanding. They refused to let the world do their thinking for them. Consider Marcus Aurelius. He ruled one of history's greatest empires, yet returned again and again to solitude, using silence to examine his own mind before attempting to govern anyone else. Consider Leonardo da Vinci. While others hurried past the ordinary, he lingered over details so small they became invisible to everyone else. His genius was not only intelligence, it was attention. Consider Isaac Newton. During long periods of isolation, while much of the world slowed around him, he followed questions with a patience few people could tolerate. The discoveries that changed science did not appear in moments of constant stimulation. They emerged from sustained thought. Different centuries, different lives, one enduring pattern. They protected the one resource everyone else was willing to scatter, their attention. Because they understood something our age is in danger of forgetting. A distracted mind can collect endless information. Only a focused mind can transform information into wisdom. That is why every generation produces people who consume knowledge, and a far smaller number who create it. The difference is rarely talent, it is rarely opportunity. More often than we realize, it is the ability to remain with one idea long enough for it to mature. Because every meaningful achievement begins the same way. An inventor gives a problem more attention than everyone else. An artist refuses to abandon a vision before it is fully formed. A writer stays with a single sentence until it says exactly what it needs to say. A leader continues thinking after everyone else has settled for the obvious. Greatness is seldom a product of scattered effort. It is the result of sustained attention. Every invention, every masterpiece, every breakthrough, every profound decision, each began with someone protecting a single thought from interruption long enough for it to become something real. Ideas are living things. Given time, they grow. Ignored, they disappear. Interrupted often enough, they never become anything at all. A seed does not struggle because it lacks potential. It struggles when the conditions for growth are constantly disturbed. The human mind is no different. If every quiet moment is interrupted, if every difficult thought is replaced with entertainment, if every feeling of boredom is immediately escaped, then the deepest parts of your mind never receive the time they need to develop. You become exceptionally good at gathering information, but increasingly unable to produce understanding. And those are not the same skill. Information fills the mind. Understanding reshapes it. One makes you informed, the other changes who you are. The modern world offers answers before you have even finished asking the question. Search engines finish your sentences. Algorithms predict your interests. Feeds anticipate your next curiosity before you consciously feel it. Convenience has never been greater, yet certainty has become strangely shallow. Because wisdom has never depended on having immediate answers. It begins with asking better questions, questions that cannot be answered in a few seconds, questions that demand patience, questions that force you to confront yourself before they reveal anything about the world. The question is no longer whether the world will compete for your attention. It will. Tomorrow, the day after, and every day that follows. The real question is whether you will continue giving it away without noticing. Every morning begins with a decision. Long before the first conversation, before the headlines, before the notifications, before the endless current of other people's opinions, something begins shaping your mind. Most people never realize that they are choosing. Habit makes the choice feel automatic. The hand reaches for the phone before awareness has fully arrived. The mind opens itself to the world before it has spoken to itself. And little by little, the inner world begins to resemble the outer one. Thoughts become echoes, opinions become borrowed, desires become inherited, until it becomes difficult to distinguish between what you genuinely believe and what repeated exposure has taught you to believe. But there is another way to live. It begins quietly, protecting moments of silence instead of fearing them, reading to understand, not merely to finish, thinking before reacting, listening before speaking, choosing depth when speed is rewarded, choosing reflection when distraction is easier, choosing purpose over endless consumption. None of these decisions feels dramatic. Most are invisible. No applause follows them. No audience notices. Yet the most important transformations have always been invisible while they were happening. A tree grows in silence. Character does the same. Identity is not shaped by a single extraordinary decision. It is shaped by ordinary decisions repeated long enough to become part of you. Every time you reclaim your attention, you reclaim a part of yourself. Every time you refuse to let distraction make your decisions, you strengthen something that cannot be manufactured, cannot be purchased, and cannot be programmed into you. Independent thought. Perhaps that is the rarest form of freedom left. Not the freedom to follow every impulse, not the freedom to consume without limits, but the freedom to examine your own mind, to choose your own values, and to become the author of your own attention. Because the person who governs their attention eventually governs their life. One day, people will wonder why some individuals remained clear while so many others became overwhelmed. Why some continued creating while others never escaped reacting. Why some built lives of intention while others drifted from one distraction to the next. Many will assume the difference was intelligence, or luck, or opportunity. But the truth is quieter than that. It was ownership of the mind. Because the greatest prison has never been built with stone or steel. It has always been built with habits. Habits repeated so often that they stop feeling like choices. The same is true of freedom. Freedom is rarely won in one extraordinary moment. It is built through ordinary decisions repeated with extraordinary consistency. Every time you choose awareness over distraction, you strengthen it. Every time you choose depth over noise, you strengthen it. Every time you choose purpose over impulse, you strengthen it. Character is not revealed in these moments. It is constructed by them. Your future is not shaped only by the actions you take. It is shaped by the thoughts you repeatedly allow to live inside your mind. Every idea you entertain is quietly negotiating with the person you are becoming. Some thoughts expand you, others slowly diminish you. Some sharpen your judgment, others scatter it. Every day your mind is being built, whether you intend it or not. That is why attention is never just attention. It is the doorway through which your future enters. Attention becomes thought. Thought becomes belief. Belief becomes identity. Identity becomes destiny. The sequence is so gradual that most people never notice it happening. They wait for a dramatic turning point, a life-changing opportunity, a single defining moment. But lives rarely change that way. They change through patterns. The smallest decisions, repeated often enough, become the architecture of an entire life. That is why protecting your attention is not an act of discipline alone. It is an act of self-respect. It is the quiet declaration that your mind is too valuable to be programmed by whatever happens to demand it next. The world will continue competing for your attention. That will never change. New platforms will appear. New headlines will arrive. New distractions will promise urgency. The noise will only become more sophisticated. The question has never been whether the noise exists. The question is whether it deserves access to your mind. Because every yes shapes you, and every intentional no shapes you as well. The people who remain clear in a distracted age will not be those who consume the least. They will be those who choose most carefully. They will understand that attention is not measured by how much you can absorb, but by what you refuse to surrender. Perhaps that is the quiet advantage of the truly independent mind. It does not chase every idea. It chooses the few that deserve to be carried. It does not mistake speed for progress, or information for understanding, or constant stimulation for a meaningful life. It remembers something the modern world is constantly encouraging us to forget. Your mind is your first home. Every thought you allow inside helps shape the person who lives there. Protect it with the same care you would protect anything you could never replace. Because once you stop deciding what deserves your attention, you slowly stop deciding who you become. So before this day ends, before the next notification, before another opinion asks for your agreement, pause for a single moment. Ask yourself one honest question. What has earned the best of my attention today? And if the answer makes you uncomfortable, don't see it as guilt. See it as awareness. Awareness is where every meaningful change begins. The war for your mind will continue tomorrow. It will continue next week. It will continue for the rest of your life. You cannot end that war, but you can decide who wins it. Not through one dramatic act, but through thousands of quiet decisions that no one else will ever see. Because in the end, your life is not defined by what demanded your attention. It is defined by what deserved it. If this video left you seeing your own mind differently, subscribe to Beyond Average. Because in a world that profits from distraction, the rarest form of rebellion is not speaking louder. It is thinking more deeply. And sometimes the most powerful thing you can protect is the next thought you choose to keep.